I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Older, sicker, poorer. Those three words. The Times lead. People signing up for health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. We have stats this afternoon from HHS CMS. Tend to be older and potentially less healthy. Officials said Monday, a demographic mix that could threaten the law's economic underpinnings and cause premiums to rise in the future if the pattern persists. The New York Times website uses the word fears on the top of the line headline right now. Older pool of healthcare enrollees stirs fears on costs. No, there's no surprise here, but Thaddeus, this word fears, is that surprising to you that here we are in January and there's no room for the Obama administration now? Fear is in the marketplace.
Well, John, first I apologize. When you started off the segment with older, sicker, poorer, I thought you were talking about me, so I was kind of thrown for a loop.
You're a young and vigorous man, Mr. McCotter. Please continue.
But when you hear the word fear thrown around, it shows that there seems to be something that was unexpected and untoward on the horizon coming right at them. It seems to me almost like an admission, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Mr. Fund, older, sicker, poorer, but fear, John, is that something that Washington is dealing with now? Is that why the quiet on the Affordable Care Act?
Well, from the Obama administration's point of view, there's a legitimate fear, and I think that there's an exaggerated fear. From their point of view, the legitimate fear is that now we're going to start moving towards a lot of small businesses dumping health care coverage or forcing their employees onto the exchanges, lots more people losing their insurance. The fear that I don't think they have quite to the extent that you might think is the costs going up. Remember, the insurance companies are going to be bailed out. There's already money built into the Obamacare bill to bail out the insurance company for 75% of any of their losses they have because of this older, sicker, younger population. So the taxpayers will get soaked, but it's indirectly. No one is going to get a bill in the mail saying you have to bail out the insurance companies. The challenge for critics of Obamacare will have to be to take the two things and join them together. One, the millions more people who are going to be losing their insurance that will be highly visible, and two, the ongoing bailout of the insurance companies built into Obamacare, which will not be as visible.
Thaddeus, you have a question for John or David?
Well, I guess the question would be for either gentleman is when you talk about, I think Mr. Fund is right about this, but when you start to talk about people losing their health insurance, one of the concerns a lot of us had at the time, and I think John had written about, was the fact that Obamacare seemed designed to make it harder for people to keep their health insurance, to crowd out the private sector. Isn't it going to be a fine line for Republicans to say they'd like to make sure that your health insurance premiums stay low, we want to stop these rising increases, and yet at the same time find a way to defund the subsidization of the insurance industry?
Once a subsidy is granted, it is extremely difficult to get rid of. I think the politically palatable approach is this. Free up people from the individual mandate and from the requirements that the insurance policies have to cover everything under the sun, including hair transplants. And the subsidies we can address later. They're simply deadweight costs. But tell people we are going to get rid of the things that are destroying the insurance policies you've come to depend upon. That part, I think, is very politically potent. Deal with the rest in due course.
David?
Well, I think that the biggest threat politically to Democrats is people getting notices from their employer or anybody else saying what you have is no longer available. And the reason that's a problem is because while people for years have complained about what they have costs them, they otherwise pretty much liked it. They liked the options it afforded them. They liked the doctors they were able to see. And that is the biggest, with all of the problems or potential problems with the law as it is rolled out, the killer politically has been to cancel plans and the idea that you're next. And so I do feel that for Republicans, that's the number one thing politically they should probably deal with. While they get conveniently to remind people that the president's law, is responsible for canceling plans, a solution to that, a way for people to keep what they like, is a direction that they can pursue.
David, I want to go to the politics of this, and Mr. Fund, please comment. Jeff Merkley, running for re-election in Oregon, a very blue state, a very progressive liberal state, especially around Portland. We're told now that there are 6 Republicans vying to challenge Mr. Merkley, 6, and that the Republican National Committee on Monday is launching robocalls against Mr. Merkley for having made false statements about you can keep your insurance. If Jeff Merkley's in trouble, you follow my logic, David, this looks like a panic across the Democratic Party, because this is the home of the Progressive Party.
That's correct, and that's something to look for. It's what we saw in 2010. You saw the opposite side for Democrats in 2006 and 2008, when an otherwise safe incumbent in a state that goes his or her way all of a sudden isn't safe, then you know something is afoot. Now, I haven't seen enough polling yet. In fact, I haven't seen any polling on Oregon, and I'm not sure about any of the candidates, although there is one doctor by trade who is running, and I know is going to try and capitalize on problems with Obamacare. Look to see any of the fundraising that comes out for the Republican candidates to get a picture of what's really going on in Oregon. It could be a momentary thing, or it could be something that builds. Also, if you want to see how much of a problem this is, now that Ed Gillespie is running for Senate in Virginia, you've got a very, very popular incumbent, Mark Warner. If his polling starts to look weak at any point, even if he wins, if he has to fight for it, then you know that the Republicans are probably having a good campaign.
Mr. McCotter, it's early in the year, right? We shouldn't take any of this seriously. Is that how to regard these numbers favoring the Republicans?
No, I think it's time. And as you recall, back in 1968, when Robert Kennedy lost the Oregon primary, they asked him, why did you lose? And he said, I do better with people with problems. If Oregon is having problems with Obamacare and putting an incumbent senator in jeopardy, that's something to pay attention to.
Thaddeus McCotter at the great voice of the Great Lakes, WJR. John, my colleague and co-host. John Fund of the National Review Online. David Drucker of Washington Examiner, my professionals. I'm John Batchelor, and the slogan David reports to from Dr. Webby is, keep your doctor, change your senator. I'm John Batchelor.